Hey guys, happy Monday. Or you're probably going to watch this on Tuesday, but anyway, good morning. Welcome to your last video lesson for Julius Caesar. I'm pretty excited to finish the play with you guys today. I think you'll enjoy the final act. And I say the final act because Act 5 is really short, so we're just going to read it all in one sitting. No need to break up the scenes. Okay, so if you are following along in your book, today we're going to be on page 67. And this is just a friendly reminder that as you are reading today, you are supposed to be following along in your book, doing your highlighting and your annotating so that you are ready for when you take your final test on Caesar and also for the follow-up activities that we're going to do. All right, so you'll notice as Act 5, Scene 1 starts on page 67, we are on the plains of Philippi. If you were paying attention in the last scene, you know that this is the place where Brutus and Cassius said they were going to march to meet Octavius, Antony, and Lepidus's armies. So basically, this is the place, Philippi, where things are going to go down. As we open the scene, you'll see that we have Octavius and Antony and their armies. They're going to have a brief conversation before a mess, and basically their conversation is just about like what Brutus and Cassius are doing with their armies. And then you'll see on page 67 that a messenger arrives. And the messenger basically comes in to tell them like, hey, the enemy, basically Brutus and Cassius, are here. And they want to have like a parlay with you. You guys have probably seen this before in movies. It's when you have two opposing forces that are getting ready to do battle. And before they actually have their battle, the leaders, the generals, they go out and they meet and they have a conversation. As you can probably guess, there's going to be a lot of anger and a lot of emotion. And Brutus and Cassius and Octavius and Antony are going to kind of just argue and sort of throw a bit of insult at each other. So on page 68 up through like 3/4 of the way down on 69, that's going to be their argument, okay? And basically, I will pause on page 69 where it says exit Octavius, Antony, and their army, because at that point, this part of the scene will be over, okay? So let's get ready to follow along. Again, we're starting on page 67.
Now, Antony, our hopes are answered. You said the enemy would not come down, but keep the hills and upper regions. It proves not so. Their battles are at hand. They mean to warn us at Philippi here, answering before we do demand of them.
Tut, I am in their bosoms, and I know wherefore they do it. They could be content to visit other places and come down with fearful bravery, thinking by this face to fasten in our thoughts that they have courage, but 'tis not so.
Prepare you, generals. The enemy comes on in gallant show. Their bloody sign of battle is hung out, and something to be done immediately.
Octavius, lead your battle softly on upon the left hand of the even field.
Upon the right hand, I keep the other left.
Why do you cross me in this exigent?
I do not cross you, but I will do so.
They stand and would have parley.
Stand fast, Titinius. We must out and talk.
Mark Antony, shall we give sign of battle?
No, Caesar, we will answer on their charge. Make forth. The generals would have some words.
Sir, not until the signal.
Words before blows, is it so, countrymen?
Not that we love words better as you do.
Good words are better than bad strokes, Octavius.
In your bad strokes, Brutus, you give good words. Witness the hole you made in Caesar's heart, crying, "Long live, hail Caesar."
Antony, the posture of your blows are yet unknown, but for your words, they rob the high-blood bees and leave them honeyless.
Not stingless, too.
Oh, yes, and soundless, too. For you have stolen their buzzing, Antony, and very wisely threat before you sting.
Villains! You did not so when your vile daggers hacked one another in the sides of Caesar. You showed your teeth like apes and fawned like hounds, and bowed like bondmen kissing Caesar's feet, whilst damned Casca, like a cur behind, struck Caesar on the neck. Oh, you flatterers.
Flatterers. Now, Brutus, thank yourself. This tongue had not offended so today if Cassius might have ruled.
Come, the cause. If arguing make us sweat, the proof of it will turn to redder drops. Look. I draw a sword against conspirators. When think you that the sword goes up again? Never! Till Caesar's 33 wounds be well avenged, or till another Caesar have added slaughter to the sword of traitors.
Caesar, thou canst not die by traitors' hands unless thou bringst them with thee.
So I hope. I was not born to die on Brutus' sword.
Oh, if thou wert the noblest of thy strain, young man, thou couldst not die more honourable. Peevish schoolboy, worthless of such honour, joined with a masker and a rebeller.
Old Cassius still.
Come, Antony, away. Defiance, traitors, hurl we in your teeth. If you dare fight today, come to the field. If not, when you have stomachs. All right, so as you can see, Brutus, Cassius, Octavius, and Antony, notice Lepidus is not here. He has kind of been pushed out of the little ruling group that he was in, but they basically have some pretty cross words with each other. So if we go back up to the beginning of this scene, back on page 67, we see that Octavius says to Antony, "Now, Antony, our hopes are answered. You said the enemy would not come down." So basically, Octavius is saying, like, they had hoped that Brutus and Cassius would come and meet them, and Antony had said they wouldn't, but, Octavius is happy that they did. So Brutus and Cassius have come here, says, so their battles are at hand. They mean to warn us at Philippi here, answering before we do demand of them. So basically, Octavius is happy that Brutus and Cassius have come to meet them at Philippi, which, we'll see kind of how that plays out. Okay, so once Antony and Octavius start they talk some battle strategy here. Antony says, "Octavius, lead your battle softly on upon the left hand of the even field." And Octavius says, "Upon the right hand I keep thou the left." So they're just sort of arguing about which side of the field they're going to defend. And then once Brutus and Cassius come in, we see that they quickly start insulting each other. And really, just to make a quick note here, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Antony calls Octavius Caesar, where he says here, Octavius says, "Mark Antony, shall we give sign of battle?" And Antony says, "No, Caesar, we will answer on their charge." So understand that Caesar is a title. And, it kind of means emperor. So Antony is calling Octavius Caesar. Just so you guys know, in terms of like the real history associated with this play, Octavius ends up becoming Caesar Augustus. So he's Octavius Augustus and he ends up becoming Caesar Augustus later on. So that's why he's known here as Caesar, because, his title as heir to basically Caesar's throne would also be Caesar, because he's his son, adopted son, but still son. So that's kind of why that is. All right. Now you notice here they start to talk about words and blows. Blows meaning like, punches and sword swipes. And he says to Brutus, "Words before blows, is it so, countrymen?" And Octavius says, "Not that we love words better as you do. Good words are better than bad strokes, Octavius." So they're playing around here with, like puns, word play. But I think what ultimately is important is Antony says, "In your bad strokes, Brutus, you give good words." So basically, Brutus has bad strokes or bad actions, but he says good things. "Witness the hole you made in Caesar's heart, crying, 'Long live, hail Caesar.'"
So while you were stabbing Caesar in the heart, both literally and figuratively, you were saying with your mouth, with your words, long live Caesar, but with your hands, you were doing bad strokes or bad things. And so that's kind of the play on words that they're making there between the bad strokes and the good words. Now, Antony basically says, down here, they're going back and forth, and he calls them villains, right? He says, villains, you did not so when your vile daggers hacked one another in the sides of Caesar. You showed your teeth like apes and fawned like hounds and bowed like bondmen, kissing Caesar's feet, while damned Casca, like a cur behind, struck Caesar on the neck. So here he's accusing them of basically being hypocrites. He's saying, you kissed Caesar's feet, you flattered him, and then behind his back, you were showing your teeth and you were acting like hounds, and then Casca came and stabbed Caesar. So here we see that Antony really is letting his truth be known. The last time he talked to Brutus and Cassius, he basically was trying to make nice with them, but not anymore. Antony is just letting his true opinions of them come out. And Cassius says, flatterers, now Brutus, thank yourself, this tongue hath not offended so today, if Cassius might have ruled. So remember, Cassius wanted to kill Mark Antony, and he felt that Mark Antony was dangerous. It was Brutus who didn't let him. So that's what he's basically saying, if I ruled, you wouldn't be alive. Octavius also starts sort of taunting them. He says, I draw a sword against conspirators. When think you the sword goes up again? Never till Caesar's 33 wounds be well avenged, or till another Caesar have added slaughter to the sword of traitors. So basically he's saying, I'm not going to give up until I've either avenged Caesar's death, or you're going to have to kill me. And that's important. Also here, he makes a note. He says Caesar's 33 wounds. So 3 plus 30 is 33. So he's talking about the number of times Caesar was stabbed, 33 times. And if we think about that, it really is a lot of times to stab someone. And that just brings us back to that imagery of all the different conspirators stabbing him. Notice Brutus is like, no, you're not going to die by traitors' hands unless you have them. And Octavius says, I was not born to die on Brutus's sword. So here they sort of basically, insult each other. Brutus says, young man, thou couldst not die more honorable. Basically, if I was killing you, that would be the most honorable death you could possibly have. Cassius calls him a peevish schoolboy, worthless of such an honor. So basically, he's not even worthy to die on Brutus's sword. And then he calls Mark Antony a masker and a reveler. A masker, of course, is someone who wears a mask and hides their face, kind of like Mark Antony hid his true intentions when he was talking to Brutus and Cassius. And then a reveler, somebody who basically just goes out and parties all the time, which earlier in the play, that there was evidence that Mark Antony was a reveler, but at this point, he's pretty much proven that he has a lot more to offer than just being like a party boy. So at this point, Octavius and Antony exit. And in this next part of the scene, Cassius is going to be talking with some of his people. So you'll notice Cassius is going to leave. Brutus is going to call Lucilius, his servant. And Brutus and Lucilius are going to, it says, converse apart, meaning they're going to be having a conversation. And while they're having that conversation, Cassius is going to speak with his guy, Messala. And as Cassius speaks with Messala, I want you to think about sort of Cassius's state of mind here. He's really going to tell us about how he feels and sort of what he thinks is going to happen. So that's at the bottom of page 69 up through the top of page 70. And then after he's done talking to Messala, Cassius is then going to speak with Brutus. And these men are basically going to speak about what will happen if they don't win. So they're about to fight this battle against, Mark Antony and Octavius, and they're kind of just chatting I mean, chatting is the wrong word. They're sort of, they're talking to each other about, well, what's going to happen? This is kind of that moment, that pivotal moment in their plan. And they want to basically kind of, talk about, well, what happens if things don't go the way we expect? Okay. So we are at the bottom of page 69, right after exit on Octavius, Antony, and their army. So Cassius will be talking first.
Why now blow wind, swell below and swim back. The storm is up and all is on the hazard. Oh, Lucilius, hark, a word with you.
My lord?
Messala,
What says my general?
Messala, this is my birthday. As this very day was Cassius born. Give me thy hand, Messala. Be thou my witness that against my will, as Pompey was, am I compelled to set upon one battle all our liberties. You know that I hold Epicurus strong in his opinion. Now I change my mind and partly credit things that do presage. Coming from Sardis, on our former ensign, 2 mighty eagles fell, and there they perched, gorging and feeding from our soldiers' hands, who to Philippi here consorted us. This morning are they fled away and gone, and in their steads do ravens, crows, and kites fly o'er our heads and downward look on us as we were sickly prey. Their shadows seem a canopy most fatal, under which our army lies, ready to give up the ghost. Believe not so, I but believe it partly, for I am fresh of spirit and resolved to meet all perils very constantly.
Even so, Lucilius.
Now, most noble Brutus, the gods today stand friendly that we may, lovers in peace, lead on our days to age. But since the affairs of men rest still uncertain, let's reason with the worst that may befall. If we do lose this battle, then is this the very last time we shall speak together. What are you then determined to do?
Even by the rule of that philosophy by which I did blame Cato for the death which he did give himself, I know not how, but I do find it cowardly and vile for fear of what might fall so to prevent the time of life, arming myself with patience to stay the providence of some high powers that govern us below.
Then if we lose this battle, you are contented to be led in triumph thorough the streets of Rome.
No, Cassius, no. Think not, thou noble Roman, that ever Brutus will go bound to Rome. He bears too great a mind. But this same day must end that work the Ides of March begun, and whether we shall meet again I know not. Therefore, our everlasting farewell take. Forever and forever farewell, Cassius. If we do meet again, why, we shall smile. If not, why then this parting was well made.
Forever and forever farewell, Brutus. If we do meet again, we'll smile indeed. If not, 'tis true this parting was well made.
Why then, lead on. Oh, that a man might know the end of this day's business ere it come. But it sufficeth that the day will end, and then the end is known. Come home. Away.
All right, guys, so I don't know if you could hear it in Brutus and Cassius's voice, but there's, a tone here of this is sort of our final meeting. We don't know what's going to happen, and basically if we lose today, I'm probably never going to see you again. So it's this tone of farewell and of, kind of uncertainty. If we go back to the beginning of what we just read, let's look at what Cassius says to Messala. First of all, he says, Messala, this is my birthday, as this very day was Cassius born. I think it's significant that it's his birthday because we think of a birthday as being like, a very positive thing. Most people are excited to celebrate their birthday, and Cassius does not sound very happy. If we look, he says here, I am compelled to set upon one battle all our liberties. So basically our liberties or our freedoms, they all hang on this one battle that they are about to fight. And Cassius doesn't feel too great about it. And we know this because he talks about some bad omens. We've talked about omens before, so you guys should know that word. Cassius says here, coming from Sardis on our former ensign, 2 mighty eagles fell, and there they perched, gorging and feeding from our soldiers' hands, who to Philippi here consorted us. Okay, so when they were coming from Sardis before, they had these eagles who landed and were feeding with them. Okay, but this morning are they fled away and gone, and in their steads do ravens, crows, and kites fly o'er our heads and downward look at us. As we were sickly prey, their shadow seems a canopy most fatal, under which our army lies ready to give up the ghost. So basically, the eagles are gone, and this morning, above their heads, they have ravens, crows, and kites flying. In case you don't know, these are the birds of death. They are blackbirds, ravens, and crows, and kites. And in especially to the Elizabethans, who, as we know, were very superstitious, these birds would symbolize that something bad is going to happen. And they're flying over their heads, sort of circling and looking down on the men as if they were sickly prey, as if they were something to eat. Now, these birds eat dead things. So basically, he's saying that these birds were flying over our heads, looking at us as if we were already dead. And that's why he says, their shadows seem a canopy most fatal, under which our army lies ready to give up the ghost. So basically, these birds are a sign in Cassius's mind that things are not going to go well, and he's probably going to die. So Messala tries to comfort him and says, believe not so. And Cassius says, but I believe it partly. So he's not 100% like, yeah, we're going to lose, but he's having some bad feelings. Now, when Cassius and Brutus start speaking here, we can see that there's definitely some camaraderie between these two men, because he talks about them being lovers in peace, lovers again being friends, and basically that he says to Brutus, if we do lose this battle, then this, the very last time we speak together, what are you then determined to do? So I don't know if you guys remember this, but all the way back in Act 1, Cassius had mentioned that, if he was to ever have, sorry, I have to pause. Sorry, guys, back. So right quick, over here, he says, what are you determined to do? So as I was saying, back in Act 1, Cassius had mentioned to us that he was prepared to kill himself rather than let Caesar become the emperor or supreme leader of Rome. We see here that Cassius is now hinting sort of at the same thing. And we can see that here in Brutus's response, okay? He says, he talks here about the rule of a philosophy by which I did blame Cato for the death which he did give himself. I know not how, but I do find it cowardly and vile. If you look down in your footnotes in your book, number 17, it talks about Cato, who was a supporter of Pompey, and after the defeat by Caesar of Pompey's friends at the Battle of Thaspis, Cato committed suicide at Utica in Africa. So Brutus is making a reference back to this guy Cato killing himself, and he says that he finds Cato's suicide cowardly and vile, okay? But then he says, for fear of what might fall, so to prevent the time of life, arming myself with patience to say the providence of some high powers that govern us below. So he's saying, that guy killed himself because he was afraid of what was going to happen, but I need to arm myself. I need to have patience to see what is going to happen from these high powers, the gods, what's going to happen. So then Cassius kind of calls him out and says, then if we lose this battle, you are contented to be led in triumph through the streets of Rome. So if we lose this battle, are you basically going to allow yourself to be a prisoner and led in triumph? Like Octavius and Antony would basically take them and parade them through the streets, saying like, hey, we conquered them. And Brutus is like, no. No, Cassius, no. Think that, thou noble Roman, that ever Brutus will go bound to Rome. He bears too great a mind. Okay, so Brutus is saying there's no possible way that I will ever go as a prisoner into Rome. Then he says right here, this same day must end the work the Ides of March begun. So basically he's saying, I'm never going to be a prisoner, and today we have to finish what we started. But notice that he also has a bit of a defeatist, attitude. He says, and whether we shall meet again, I know not. Okay, so he doesn't know if they're going to see each other ever again. Therefore, our everlasting farewell take. And both Brutus and Cassius say the same thing. Forever and forever farewell. If we do meet again, why I shall smile. If not, why then this parting was well made. And Cassius repeats that same phrase back to Brutus. So basically here, guys, Brutus is sort of saying, I don't believe in suicide, but I also know that I will never, ever allow myself to be led as a prisoner into Rome. So Brutus has to come to some sort of, he's got to merge those two thoughts together. It's on the one hand, he's saying he won't kill himself, but on the other hand, he's saying he won't be a prisoner. So we have to see what happens with this battle. And that's it. They say goodbye to each other. Okay, so the next scene, look how short it is. It's one little paragraph. We are now in the same field of battle, okay? And you're going to see Brutus, and he is going to give his man, Messala, some directions. And just pay attention to what he tells Messala to do. Okay.
Ride, Messala, ride! And give these bills unto the legions on the other side. Let them set on at once, for I perceive but cold demeanor in Octavius' wing, and sudden push gives them the overthrow. Ride, Messala! Let them all come down.
Okay, so really short scene here, but we see that Brutus gives Messala some directions. He says, give these bills unto the legions on the other side. So he's basically telling Messala to go and deliver a message. And then he says, I perceive but cold demeanor in Octavius's wing, and sudden push gives them the overthrow. Okay, ride and let them all come down. So he's telling Messala that he perceives a cold demeanor in Octavius's forces, meaning basically like a weakness, right? And so he's trying to let them all come down so they can hopefully overtake Octavius's forces. Now, scene 3, in another part of the field, we're going to see Cassius speaking with his men. His guy's name is Titinius, okay? And he's basically going to tell Titinius sort of what he perceives is happening. He's going to look, remember we said Brutus knew that, Octavius's forces were not strong, so he was giving the signal to go and attack Octavius's forces. But basically, Titinius and Cassius are watching all of this happen, and they're going to respond to what they are seeing, okay? You're going to also see another guy come in, Pindarus, again, one of Cassius's guys, and Cassius is going to give him some directions, okay? So basically, he's going to give him some directions, and we're going to see, how Titinius and Pindarus play that out. So here we go.
Oh, look, Titinius! Look! The villains fly! Myself have to mine own turned enemy. This ensign here of mine was turning back. I slew the coward and did take it from him.
Oh, Cassius, Brutus gave the word too early. Who, having some advantage on Octavius, took it too eagerly. His soldiers fell to spoil, whilst we by Antony are all enclosed.
Fly further off, my lord, fly further off. Mark Antony is in your tents, my lord. Fly therefore, noble Cassius, fly far off.
This hill is far enough.
Look, Titinius! Are those my tents where I perceive the fire?
They are, my lord.
Titinius, if thou lovest me, mount thou my horse and hide thy spurs in him till he have brought thee up to yonder troops and here again, that I may rest assured whether yon troops are friend or enemy.
I will be here again, even with a thought.
Okay, so to quickly just let you understand what's happening here, okay? So basically, the strategy, right, was Brutus was giving the signal. So basically, Titinius is telling Cassius, Brutus gave the word too early, okay? And basically, he's saying that Brutus's soldiers they're being defeated by Octavius's forces, and then he's saying we, by Antony, are all enclosed. So basically, he's saying that Brutus gave the word too early, tried to attack too early. So Octavius basically conquered him or overtook him. And now Antony's forces are overtaking us. So the directions here that he gives to Pindarus is, he says, Pindarus tells him, you need to go, right? Fly further off, leave. Mark Antony is in your tents, okay? So go, you have to leave. You're being overtaken by Antony's forces. Cassius is saying, I'm fine, right? I'm on this hill, look over there. Are those my tents on fire? And Titinius says, yes, they are. So that's why Cassius sends him away. He says, if you love me, mount my horse and hide thy spurs in him, like go fast, and go see whether yon troops are friend or enemy. So he's not sure. Like, his men are telling him, hey, you're being surrounded by Mark Antony's men, but Cassius wants to make sure. He's like, go check and see if those men are our men or are they the enemy. I'm not sure. And then Titinius goes, okay? So let's see what happens next.
Go, Pindarus! Get higher on that hill. My sight was ever thick. Regard Titinius, and tell me what thou noticest about the field.
My lord.
This day I breathed first. Time is come round, and where I did begin, there shall I end. My life is run his compass. Sirrah, what news?
Oh, my lord!
What news?
Titinius is enclosed and round about with horsemen that make to him on the spur, yet he spurs on. Now they are almost on him. Now, Titinius! Now, some light! Oh, he lights too! He's tamed! And hark, they shout for joy!
Come down! Behold no more. O coward that I am, to live so long to see my best friend ta'en before my face. Come hither, Sirrah. In Parthia did I take thee prisoner, and then I swore thee, saving of thy life, that whatsoever I did bid thee do, thou shouldst attempt it. Come now, keep thine oath. Thou be a free man, and with this good sword that ran through Caesar's bowels, search this bosom. Stand not to answer. Here, take thou the hilts, and when my face is covered, as 'tis now, guide thou the sword. Caesar, thou art revenged, even with the sword that killed thee.
So I am free, yet would not so have been, durst I have done my will. O Cassius, far from this country Pindarus shall run, where never Roman shall take note of him.
All right, guys. So Cassius he died. He basically killed himself. Why? Okay. So remember, he sends Titinius, right, on his horse to go and see if the troops are friend or enemy. And he tells Pindarus to go look and tell him what is happening. He says, my sight was ever thick. So basically, Cassius is saying, like, I can't see that well, Pindarus. Could you please go look and see what's going on? I need to know what's happening. And Pindarus tells him, Titinius is enclosed round about with horsemen that make him onto the spur. So he's surrounded by men. He says they are almost on him. He's taken, okay? They shout for joy. So basically, Pindarus is describing a scene where Titinius is basically taken by these men, these horsemen, and they're shouting for joy over capturing him. So Cassius says, "Come down and behold no more, O coward that I am, to live so long, to see my best friend ta'en before my face." So Cassius is just like, oh my gosh, come down. You know, Titinius was my best friend. I can't handle the fact that he was just killed. And now he talks to Pindarus, right? He says to Pindarus, "In Parthia did I take thee prisoner." So basically, Pindarus is Cassius's prisoner / slave, if you want to think about it that way. And he says, "And then I swore thee," so I swore to you, saving of your life, "that whatsoever I did bid thee do, thou shouldst attempt it." So he's saying that when he took him prisoner, he basically had him swear, because he was saving his life, that whatever Cassius told him to do, you would do it, right? So he says, "With this good sword that ran through Caesar's bowels," so the same sword he used to stab Caesar, he says, "Take the hilt, and when my face is covered, guide thou the sword." Okay, and then we see that Pindarus stabs him. So basically, he's giving him the sword and he's telling him to stab him. Technically, I guess, Pindarus kills Cassius, but if you think about it, it's basically a suicide, because Cassius is giving him the sword, he's covering his face, and he's telling Pindarus to kill him, okay? And then he says these final words, "Caesar, thou art revenged, even with the sword that killed thee." So basically, Caesar is revenged through the death of Cassius with the same sword that killed Caesar. Now, Cassius just told us that Pindarus was a slave. So basically, Pindarus is not overly upset that Cassius is gone. He says, "So I am free," okay? And he says, "Far from this country shall Pindarus he will run, where never Roman shall take note of him." So at this point, basically, he's like, I've got to get out of here. You know, he's free, his master is dead, and he leaves. All right. So now, look who's about to come into the scene. Oh, look, it's Titinius, the same Titinius that Pindarus just told us was overtaken by the enemy. Clearly, Titinius was not overtaken by the enemy if here he is entering the scene. So we see a little bit of a Romeo and Juliet scenario here, where you remember in Romeo and Juliet how Romeo thought Juliet was dead, so he killed himself, but then actually she was alive. Well, Cassius thought Titinius was dead, so he had Pindarus kill him, and yet here is Titinius alive. So let's see what actually happened.
It is but change, Titinius, for Octavius is overthrown by noble Brutus' power, as Cassius' legions are by Antony.
These tidings will well comfort Cassius.
Where did you leave him?
All disconsolate with Pindarus his bondman on this hill.
Is not that he that lies upon the ground?
He lies not like the living. Oh, my heart.
Is not that he?
No, this was he, Messala. But Cassius is no more. O setting sun, as in thy red rays thou dost sink tonight, so in his red blood Cassius' day is set. The sun of Rome is set. Our day is gone. Clouds, dews, and dangers come. Our deeds are done. Mistrust of my success hath done this deed.
Mistrust of good success hath done this deed. Oh, hateful error, melancholy's child. Why dost thou show to the apt thoughts of men the things that are not? Oh, error soon conceived, thou never comest unto a happy birth, but killedst the mother that engendered thee.
What, Pindarus? Where art thou, Pindarus?
Seek him, Titinius, whilst I go to meet the noble Brutus, thrusting this report into his ears. I may say, thrusting it, for piercing steel and darts envenomed shall be as welcome to the ears of Brutus as tidings of this sight.
Hie you, Messala, and I will seek for Pindarus the while. Why dost thou send me forth, brave Cassius? Did I not meet thy friends, and did not they put on my brows this wreath of victory, and bid me give it thee? Didst thou not hear their shouts? Alas, thou hast misconstrued everything. But hold thee, take this garland on thy brow. Thy Brutus bid me give it thee, and I will do his bidding. Brutus, come apace, and see how I regarded Caius Cassius. By your leave, gods, this is a Roman's part. Come, Cassius' sword, and find Titinius' heart.
All right, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, what is happening? Everybody is dying. But remember, we're reading a tragedy. And at the end of tragedies, that's what happens. Everybody dies. So let's go back up here and see exactly what was the story, right? Because when Titinius and Messala come back in, they say these tidings will well comfort Cassius. So we know, hey, good things were happening, right? So basically, they notice Cassius's body here, right? And they are very sad right here. Cassius is no more, all of this kind of stuff. And he says, that it was mistrust of my success. So basically, Cassius didn't believe that he was going to be successful. And that is why he is dead. And they start looking for Pindarus. Of course, he's not there. So Messala tells him, seek him, Titinius, while I go to meet the noble Brutus. So Messala's like, hey, go find Pindarus. I got to go tell my guy Brutus what happened, because this is, you completely, they weren't expecting, Cassius to kill himself. So they have to go tell Brutus what happened. Okay, so after Messala leaves, we see him talk to Cassius's body. And he says, why didst thou send me forth, brave Cassius? Did I not meet thy friends? And did they not put on my brows this wreath of victory? Didst thou not hear the shouts? So when Cassius was basically perceiving that Titinius was surrounded and they were shouting, that was true. What Pindarus told him was true. It's just that he was being surrounded and they were shouting in victory. They were happy, okay? And Pindarus told him that it was his enemies that were, were around it. So then he says, Brutus, come apace and see how I regarded Caius Cassius, and he kills himself, okay? I know, kind of crazy. You think, why would he kill himself? But basically, he says this is his part. This is a Roman's part, and his man is gone, and so he's going to leave too. Really quick before I forget, right here, just to quickly recap what is actually happening. Octavius is being overthrown by Brutus's power. So when Brutus had sent Messala out to deliver the news, that was actually correct. Brutus overthrew Octavius's powers. Okay, and then he says, as Cassius' legions are by Antony. So basically, Brutus's side is winning against Octavius right now, but Cassius's legions are by Antony. They were being overthrown by Antony, and so that's kind of where the battle sits. Like right now, it's kind of like a 50-50. Like Octavius is being overthrown by Brutus, but Cassius is being overthrown by Antony. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so at this point now, Titinius has killed himself, and you'll notice that now Brutus is here. So Messala went to go get Brutus, and now he's here with a bunch of the guys, and they're going to basically find both Cassius and now Titinius dead.
Where, Messala, doth his body lie?
Lo, yonder, and Titinius mourning it.
Titinius faces upward.
He is slain.
Oh, Julius Caesar, thou art mighty yet. Thy spirit walks abroad and turns our swords in our own proper entrails.
Brave Titinius. Look, where he hath not crowned dead Cassius.
Are yet 2 Romans living such as these? The last of all the Romans. Fare thee well. It is impossible that ever Rome should breed thy fellow. Friends, I owe more tears to this dead man than you shall see me pay. I shall find time, Cassius. I shall find time. Come, therefore, and to Thassos send his body. His funeral shall not be in our camp, lest it discomfort us. Lucilius, come, and come, young Cato, let us to the field. Labio and Flavius set our battles on. 'Tis 3 o'clock, and Romans, yet ere night we shall try fortune in a second fight.
All right, so basically when Brutus comes in and he sees that Cassius is slain, you notice that there's definitely a sense of sadness here. Brutus says, "O Julius Caesar, thou art mighty yet." This is at the bottom of page 74. And so basically, he's talking about Caesar's ghost. Thy spirit walks abroad and turns our swords in our own proper entrails. So he kind of blames what is happening on Caesar's ghost and the fact that Caesar's ghost is kind of haunting them. And then he says here basically about Cassius, "Friends, I owe more tears to this dead man than you shall see me pay. I shall find time, Cassius, I shall find time." So he's very sad about Cassius dying, but also they're in the middle of a war, so he can't exactly stop and mourn Cassius's body, which is why he basically tells them, okay, we've got to keep going, we're going to go fight, but I will find time to shed tears for Cassius. Okay? All right. Let's keep going. So, scene 4. Now we're back on the battlefield, and you're going to see Brutus and, his soldiers, a young guy named Cato, his man Lucilius, a bunch of other people fighting. And you'll notice that quickly the scene is going to start, and you'll notice that Brutus and Cato are there, and then they exit, okay? And I want you to pay attention to the fact they exit, because there's going to be a little bit of trickery happening here. Remember, Brutus is obviously the leader now, especially Cassius is gone, there's no other leader. So if you capture the leader of an army, then basically the battle is over. So there's going to be a little bit of trickery played on the side of Lucilius. So remember that Brutus exits here before we get into that next part, okay?
Proclaim my name about the field. I am the son of Marcus Cato, who, a fool to tyrants and my country's friend. I am the son of Marcus Cato, who, and I am Brutus, Marcus Brutus, Brutus, my country's friend. Know me for Brutus! Noble Cato, art thou down? Thou diest as bravely as Titinius, and mayst be honoured, being Cato's son. Yield, or thou diest! Only I yield to die! There is so much that thou wilt kill me straight! Kill Brutus, and be honoured in him! We must not! A noble prisoner! Oh no! Get out of here! Brutus is dead! Hush aloud! Here comes the general! Brutus is dead! Brutus is dead, my lord! Where is he? Safe, Antony. Brutus is safe enough. I dare assure thee that no enemy shall ever take alive the noble Brutus. The gods defend him from so great a shame. When you do find him,
or alive or dead, he will be found like Brutus, like himself. This is not Brutus, friend, but I assure you a prize no less in worth. Keep this man safe. Give him all kindness. I had rather have such men my friends than enemies. Go on and see where Brutus be alive or dead, and bring us word unto Octavius' tent how everything is chanced.
So hopefully you understood that trickery there, but basically Lucilius sort of pretends to be Brutus here, okay? And the purpose of that is basically that he's giving Brutus the opportunity to get away. The men here think that they have gotten Brutus. That's why Lucilius says, kill Brutus and be honored in his death. And then in fact, they take him as prisoner and they tell, Antony, the noble Brutus is taken. But remember, Brutus already exited the scene. And I know that there was a lot of crazy shouting, but the recording is trying to capture the idea that they're really on the field of battle here. And, if you've ever seen any war movie, you know that it's just, there's tons of action happening everywhere and men fighting with each other. And so Brutus is able to slip away while Lucilius basically pretends to be him. But remember, Antony knows that it's not Brutus. Antony says, this is not Brutus, but I assure you a prize no less in worth. Keep this man safe. So Antony knows that it's not Brutus, but Lucilius is still one of Brutus's generals, one of his important men in his army. And so that's why Antony says that this is a prize no less in worth. He knows that Brutus cares about Lucilius and that this is a really good prisoner to have. All right, so at this point now, as you can see, Brutus's forces are being overtaken. Brutus has fled. His men are giving up. They are now basically losing. They had gained some traction when Brutus was, facing Octavius's men. But now that Cassius and his guys are pretty much out of it, Brutus is alone and he is done. So as we go into scene 5, the last scene of the play, woohoo, we're almost there. We've got 3 more pages left. We see that Brutus is with his guys. You're going to see Brutus and some of his men. We've got Clitus, Dardanius, Strato, and Voluminus. These are all just Brutus's men that are with him. And I want you to pay very close attention because Brutus is going to ask each one of these men to do something for him. And I don't know, are they going to do it or are they not going to do it is the question. And if you've been paying attention to foreshadowing, you can probably guess what the thing is that he's going to ask them, but I'll let it go ahead and play.
Come, poor remains of friends. Rest on this rock.
Statilius showed the torchlight, but my lord, he came not back. He is or ta'en or slain.
Sit thee down, Clitus. Slaying is the word. It is a deed in fashion. Hark thee, Clitus.
What, I, my lord? No, not for all the world.
Peace then, no words.
I'd rather kill myself.
Hark thee, Dardanius.
Shall I do such a deed?
Oh, Dardanius.
Clitus.
What ill request did Brutus make to thee?
To kill him, Clitus. Look, he meditates.
Now is that noble vessel full of grief that it runs over even at his eyes.
Come hither, good Volumnius. List a word.
What says my lord?
Why this, Volumnius? The ghost of Caesar hath appeared to me 2 several times by night. At Sardis once, and this last night here in Philippi fields. I know my hour is come.
Not so, my lord.
Nay, I am sure it is, Volumnius. Thou seest the world, Volumnius, how it goes. Our enemies have beat us to the pit. It is more worthy to leap in ourselves than tarry till they push us. Good Volumnius, thou knowest that we 2 went to school together. Even for that our love of old, I pray thee, hold thou my sword hilts whilst I run on it.
That's not an office for a friend, my lord.
Fly, fly, my lord. There is no tarrying here.
Farewell to you, and you, Volumnius. Strato, thou hast been all this while asleep. Farewell to thee too, Strato. Countrymen, my heart doth joy that yet in all my life I found no man but he was true to me. I shall have glory by this losing day more than Octavius and Mark Antony by this vile conquest shall attain unto. So fare you well at once, for Brutus' tongue hath almost ended his life's history. Night hangs upon mine eyes. My bones would rest that have but laboured to attain this hour. Fly, my lord, fly! Hence, I will follow. I prithee, Strato, stay there by thy lord. Thou art a fellow of a good respect. Thy life hath had some smatch of honour in it. Hold then my sword, and turn away thy face, while I do run upon it. Wilt thou, Strato?
Give me your hand first.
Fare you well, my lord. Farewell, good Strato. Caesar, now be still. I killed not thee with half so good a will.
All right, so as you probably were able to predict, Brutus dies in a very similar way to Cassius. He asks this guy Strato to basically hold the hilt of his sword while he runs on it. So Strato would be there holding the sword, and Brutus would basically run against the sword and be stabbed. What is different, though, here is that we see that Brutus has to actually ask several of his men. I mean, it's not basically until the fourth person he asks that he finds someone to do this. In the beginning, he whispers here to Clytus, and this is on the bottom of page 76. He whispers to Clytus and he whispers to Didanius, and you notice they say to each other, what ill request did Brutus make to thee? To kill him, Clytus. Look, he meditates. So basically he asks Clytus and Dardanius, and they're like, no way, I'd rather kill myself. We cannot possibly kill you. And then he says to Voluminus, again, that he wants him to kill him. And for reasons, he says right here, I think this is the most important thing, the ghost of Caesar hath appeared to me several times by night, at Sardis once. So that was the scene we saw when Caesar's ghost appeared to him at Sardis. And then he says this last night here in Philippi fields. So that wasn't actually shown to us, but Brutus is saying basically that Caesar's ghost came to him another time here in Philippi. And so he says, I know my hour is come. And so that is why Brutus has decided that he's going to kill himself. Now, basically he says, our enemies have beat us to the pit. So basically they're losing, right? Our enemies have beat us to the pit. It is more worthy to leap in ourselves than tarry till they push us. So it's better to just go ahead and leap in and kill ourselves rather than they kill us. And then he basically tries to get Voluminus to kill him. We went to school together. We have, a love of old, meaning, I've known you for a long time. Hold thou my sword hilt whilst I run on it. Voluminus, of course, says, that's not an office for a friend. So he's like, I'm your friend. I can't do that. And he tells him, fly, basically run away. You don't have to kill yourself. And then he notices that Strato is there. And so Strato plays that role of the man who's going to kill himself, or to help him kill himself. And so he says, after Clytus, Dardanius, and Voluminus leave, I prithee, Strato, stay thou by thy lord. Hold then my sword and turn away thy face while I do run upon it. So basically, again, Strato's just holding that sword and looking away while Brutus runs on the sword. And so he says farewell, and Brutus kills himself by running on his sword. So at this point, the circle that we started with this conspiracy to kill Caesar has basically been fulfilled, because we learned that Mark Antony and Octavius and Lepidus had already killed all of pretty much the senators. So at this point, Brutus and Cassius were pretty much the only two conspirators left, and now they are also dead. Okay, last little part. Octavius, Antony, Messala, Lucilius, and their whole forces are now here, and they know that Brutus has died, and so there's going to be a little bit of a final sort of small little speech, just a little paragraph from Antony and Octavius about what has happened, and just sort of pay attention to the way that they talk about the conspirators, specifically Brutus, here at the end of the play.
What man is that?
My master's man. Strato, where is thy master?
Free from the bondage you are in, Messala. The conquerors can but make a fire of him. For Brutus only overcame himself, and no man else hath honour by his death.
So Brutus should be found.
I thank thee, Brutus, that thou hast proved Lucilius' saying true.
All that serve Brutus, I will entertain them. Fellow, wilt thou bestow thy time with me?
Aye, if Messala will prefer me to you.
Do so, good Messala.
How died my master, Strato?
I held the sword, and he did run on it.
Octavius, then take him to follow thee, that did the latest service to my master. This was the noblest Roman of them all. All the conspirators, save only he, did that they did in envy of great Caesar. He only, in a general, honest thought and common good to all, made one of them. His life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to all the world, this was a man.
According to his virtue, let us use him, with all respect and rites of burial. Within my tent his bones tonight shall lie most like a soldier, ordered honorably. So call the field to rest, and let's away, to part the glories of this happy day.
All right, so I don't know if you sort of heard those final words, the impact of those final words of Antony, but right here, Antony says something that he has said before, but we kind of understand his thought process. He says, this is the noblest Roman of them all. So still, even though he fought against Brutus, he still considers him noble because he says all the conspirators, save only he, did that they did in great envy of Caesar. He only, in a general honest thought and common good to all, made one of them. So basically, he was only a conspirator because he truly thought it was for the common good of all people. And Antony says, that he had so many elements mixed up in him that nature might stand and say to the world, this was a man. So Antony does still have respect for Brutus, not for Cassius or any of the other guys, but for Brutus. And we see that through his final words. And then Octavius says, and this is about the man who killed his father, that we are going to give him all respect and rites of burial. Within my tent his bones tonight shall lie, most like a soldier, ordered honorably. So basically, they're going to treat Brutus's body with honor. Octavius is going to keep him in his tent and make sure that he has, an honorable funeral. And then right here, these last two lines are kind of important just because pretty much every Shakespeare play ends with what we call a rhyming couplet, meaning the last two lines of the play rhyme. For example, in Romeo and Juliet, the last two lines of the play are, for never was a story of more woe, of this of Juliet and her Romeo. Might be one word different than what I just said, but mostly that's pretty much it. For never was a story of more woe, of this of Juliet and her Romeo. So here, Julius Caesar ends with, so call the field to rest and let's away, to part the glories of this happy day. And those two lines are called a rhyming couplet. Couplet like the word couple just means two, and rhyming because they rhyme. And it's a way of Shakespeare letting his audience know that the play is over, and it's a way of kind of ending with impact because you remember lines when they rhyme, and that's it. You know, for Octavius, this is a happy day. For Antony, this is a happy day. For Brutus and Cassius and all the rest, it was a really terrible day. And if we think about overall this being a tragedy, we've got a lot of characters who died, starting with Julius Caesar, Brutus's wife Portia, then Cassius, then Titinius, and then Brutus himself. Plus, you know, all of the senators, 100 or 70, we're not really sure, who were also put to death, and, you know, the civil war that erupted. So definitely a tragedy with all of the death and dying that we have, but in some regards, at least according to Octavius and Antony, a happy ending. And as I said to you guys, Octavius in actual real history does go on to become Caesar Augustus, and he leads Rome during a time of many, many years of peace that Rome had not had prior to him becoming the Caesar or the emperor. So, fun fact, that is why I named my cat after Octavius. That's why his name is Octavian Augustus, because he ruled Rome in a very peaceful and happy way. All right, guys, that's the end of our play. So you'll have an assignment to do, and then we're going to have a test and some analysis. So stay tuned for those assignments coming soon, and I hope you have a great day.